Hello, my dearest friends. Welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Today I'm going to be doing a tag video, a book tag that was created by Jess from Honest Fiction. It's an original tag that she created, I think, a couple of days ago, and it's called In My Audiobook Era Booktag. It's all about audiobooks. So she's come up with several questions, that I think about 11 or 12 questions that all have to do with audiobook reading preferences, favorite things about audiobooks, and also some kind of icks about audiobooks as well. So I'm going to be answering all of those questions so you can get to know my reading taste when it comes to audiobooks, what I prefer, who I love as narrators, what favorites of mine have been, and also what got me started with my audiobook era in general. I really love that Jess came up with this tag because I believe we need to give more love to audiobooks in general. There's a lot of discussion about whether audiobooks count as reading or not. For me, I have to say that when I was a more physical reader, like physical books and ebooks, I could not imagine myself picking up audiobooks in the past. But since I've started reading audiobooks since like 2021, I've primarily kind of shifted towards reading mostly audiobooks. So for me, they're really something that helped me get through more stories, immerse myself into stories that I typically wouldn't gravitate towards if I had to like eyeball read them. So for me, they've been a real revelation, to be quite honest. So I'm really happy to talk about audiobooks, preferences in audiobooks, and all things audiobooks in general. So thank you so much, Jess, for coming up with this tag. I'm going to be answering all of these questions right now, and then in the end, I'm going to be tagging a couple of people. Honestly, I haven't come up with who I'm going to tag, but we'll come up to that point at the end of this video. The first question is, what was the first audiobook you ever listened to? Now, as I mentioned, before 2021, I typically read ebooks and physical books. I could not imagine myself reading audiobooks because I thought that I couldn't focus enough to read through listening. I was kind of very prejudiced, to be quite honest. I just was very fixated on feeling like reading a story meant that I had to somehow visualize it, so really read the words to be able to retain them. But I had never really tried it, so I was kind of prejudiced without a reason. And at some point, a friend of mine was like, there is this service called Storytel, and right now it's quite affordable. So you only pay like a very little fee, and then you can listen to all these books. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna give it a try, because I think the first 3 months were free, and then you started to pay the subscription. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try for 3 months to see if I'm gonna finish any books that way, to see how I feel about them, and then I'm gonna see if it's something for me. And to be quite honest, the first book that I picked up was probably not the best book for me specifically. The first book that I read as an audiobook was by Tessa Bailey. It Happened One Summer, and I think that that is probably my least favorite romance book in general. I've talked about this book a lot on my channel as it being not a favorite book of mine at all. And when I was listening to it, I was cringing a lot because it's quite a spicy book. So for me to dive into audiobooks with a very spicy book was kind of almost a bit off-putting, because I was just really weirded out by hearing people narrate those sex scenes, and it was weird. I just didn't enjoy the book, and I didn't really enjoy the experience. But at the same time, I was like, had I started this book, because I'm a person who doesn't DNF, had I started this book physically, I probably would have spent weeks trying to finish it, because I just did not enjoy it. While with this experience, I finished it within like a day or two. So I was like, okay, let's give another book a try. So I read a couple of the Bergman Brothers books by Chloe Leese, and those I actually did enjoy. So from that point on, I was like, okay, let's give something else a try. Maybe something that I wouldn't typically read physically because it's intimidating to me. And that's when I picked up the Akdar series by Sarah J. Maas. And I have to say that those were probably the books that really got me into audiobook reading, because they were a real revelation for me. I felt very kind of immersed into the story. I felt like I could imagine the world in a better way because it felt like it was playing like a movie within my head because I was listening to it. And that's when I think my love for audiobooks really got ignited. And yeah, from that point, I haven't really turned my back onto audiobooks at all. I've been listening to mostly audiobooks since then, and then have toned down my physical reading quite a lot. Now, question number 2 is, who are your favorite narrators? I have so many. I have to say that obviously, like the most popular ones, like Teddy Hamilton and Sebastian York and CJ Bloom, those definitely, like Andy Arndt, those are narrators that will come up in the contemporary romance and also some dark romance books. So yes, those definitely I gravitate towards. And the nice thing about the subscription service that I use, I'm going to talk about that in a moment in another question, but is that you can actually filter, or actually you can favorite your favorite narrators, and whenever something new that is narrated by them pops up in the library, it will give you a notification push. So I will read whenever something comes up with them being as narrators. I will check it out and then I'll add it to my TBR. So a couple of my real all-time favorites are Julia Whalen, because she narrates Taylor Jenkins Reid and also Emily Henry. I love Aidan Snow. I love Winston James because he has a couple of the narrations of books that are really all-time favorites of mine. He has narrated one of the Less Than 40 books. I think it was Mile High. He has narrated Christina C. Jones books. He has narrated one of the A.E. Valdez books that I really, really loved. So I've really loved a lot of the books that Winston James has narrated. I also love Gregory Salinas and also Kelsey Navarro. There's just so many narrators, honestly, that I can name right now, but I've just really favorited all of them in my Storytel application so that whenever they have something new popping up that I can check it out. And I'm always on the lookout for new to me narrators that will capture my ear. And I know that there's a lot that I still need to discover when it comes to the fantasy and romantasy genre, because those kinds of narrators are different than the ones that narrate contemporary romances, specifically Laura Horowitz. She's narrating Phantasma and a couple of other romantasies. I've really enjoyed her narration as well. So there's a lot. There's really a lot of narrators that I really highly enjoy. And yeah, it's really a craft that I highly, highly appreciate right now, because it's something that not everybody can do, honestly. Now, the next question is, what audiobook platforms do you use? Now, I primarily use Storytel, as I mentioned. I am not in the United States, so I don't have Everand or Hoopla or all the other services that are actually only reserved for American users. I use Storytel. It is based in Europe. I think it's a Swedish company, if I'm not mistaken, and it's available internationally. So there's a lot of countries that already have it that are not in Europe. And I pay a subscription service, which is about like $7 or $8 a month, and I get access to their full library. And it's available in the languages that I've chosen, which are Bulgarian and English. So I have an extensive English library available to me. So a lot of contemporary and fantasy romances I get through there. And I also am subscribed to Audible Plus. So I pay a subscription fee of about, what is it, €8 or €9, if I'm not mistaken, a month, and I get a credit. And with that credit, I can choose an audiobook each month. Now, I have to be honest that I really reserve my credits for books that I cannot get through Storytel. So I will be very stingy with my credits. And I also am looking forward to whenever Audible have sales so that I can kind of purchase audiobooks on sale that I can, again, not get through Storytel. So those are the two main audiobook platforms that I use. The next question is really interesting. What book did you love on audio that you might not have enjoyed reading physically? I have two books that I can think of off the top of my head. One of them is a recent read, and that is The Wedding People. This book starts off on kind of a depressing note, And if I had to read it physically, it would feel like a very heavy read at the start of the book. And I'm not sure I would have gotten through it as easy as I did with the audiobook, because the narrator of this book, I just felt very connected with it. It was narrated in a very fitting way for the topic that it was dealing with. I don't know how to explain it in a better way. If you have read the audiobook for this one, I think you'll get what I mean. But it just took me on a journey in a very organic and a very gradual way. And I really, really enjoyed the book specifically because I think of the narration. Also, the topics, obviously, at some point within the book, it started to progress in a way that I really enjoyed it. But the first part of the book is quite depressing. So I'm not sure that I would have gotten through it. I might have DNF'd it, honestly, in the first 30% of the book if I had not picked it up as an audiobook. And then the second book is Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. This book, the audiobook narration for this book is so much fun. I think that the book overall felt very exciting because of the audiobook narration. I think if I had read it physically, I might not have gotten the same kind of joy out of the story. It is a romantic, dark comedy, so there are still kind of comedic moments that I would have gotten with just eyeball reading it. But still, really, the effects that were put into this audiobook, it's duet narration. So there's just a lot within that production that really worked, that made it even better than the actual original work. So for me, that one, I definitely think is more worth it as an audiobook than as a physical book. The next question is, what's your go-to audiobook speed? Now, it depends on what kind of book I'm reading, and it depends also on how fast the actual narrator is speaking and what kind of accent they use. When it comes to my general go-to, it's probably going to be 2x speed. If someone has a very heavy accent, or if it's a fantasy that I kind of need to slow down because there's a lot of world building and there's a lot of detail that I need to kind of keep in mind, I'll shift it down to 1.8 speed. So those are my go-to speeds. I don't go faster than that, and I don't go slower than that. And the thing is also, I know that a lot of people in the bookish community will go higher than 2, so 2.5, 2.75, 3. That is completely normal, probably for native speakers. I am European. I'm not specifically a native English speaker. So for me, a 2x speed is something that is quite kind of almost like a normal speaking tempo for me, that I can understand and that I can get behind. So 2 is my sweet spot. Question number 6 is, do you prefer single or dual or multi-narration in an audiobook? For me, duet. Duet all the way. I know that those are the hardest to come by because they're quite expensive to produce. So duet narration is whenever we've got the male and female characters narrating their parts within each chapter. So really, you don't get any female narrators doing male voices and male narrators doing female voices, because each of them do their respective parts within the narration. That is my ultimate kind of wish, that we get all the audiobooks like that, because it makes it almost like a dialogue. It makes it like almost like a movie. So those are really my favorites. If that were not to be possible, then I would prefer dual narration, where we get each chapter narrated by the respective narrator, so female and then male. I don't often like single narration. It depends on the narrator, to be quite honest, because some narrators do quite well when it comes to the other sex's voice. So if we've got a female narrator and they need to do a male voice, some of them do it really well, but there are some of them who kind of overdo it. And then when it comes to male narrators, that is probably the bigger problem here. When male narrators need to do a female voice, that's when it gets kind of icky. So for me, I would prefer to have duet, if not dual narration. Oh, I actually forgot to say something about the multicast narration. So I haven't read a lot of these books. I have read a couple lately, and I have to say that It really depends. It's like for why choose. Yes, definitely multicast narration is amazing. If it comes to graphic audio, I really want to try a graphic audio. I haven't yet read any graphic audios yet, and those are like full cast or multicast narrations. And I would like to try one of those to see how I like it. But the ones that I've read, I've liked, so I'm willing to try more. Question number 7 is, do you listen while multitasking or do you sit and listen like it's a movie? So for me, I put my audiobook in whenever I'm doing any kind of chores, whenever I go grocery shopping, whenever I'm cooking, whenever I'm cleaning. So I am multitasking almost the whole time. The only time when I'm not multitasking is whenever my kid has gone to bed, and if I'm not watching a movie with my partner and I just sit down on the couch or in my bed, and then actually typically at that point I'll not listen to an audiobook, but I'll open up my ebook. But if I were to be listening to something that I'm very immersed in, that's the only time when I'm not multitasking. That's when I'm going to be only just sitting down and listening. But most of the time, like 95% of the time, I'm actually doing something else while I'm listening. And it really doesn't bother me. It doesn't take me out of the story. It's actually making things that I typically don't enjoy doing more enjoyable. So whenever I need to like fold the laundry, I'm not thinking about the mundane task and that I'm losing time. I'm just enjoying my audiobook while also doing this mundane thing that I need to be doing. So it really helps actually with feeling more relaxed when I need to do things that are mandatory to be done at home. And I really love that. I love that I have this escape when I need to be doing a lot of things that need to be done, that I actually do also something enjoyable in the meantime. Question number 8 is, what is your biggest audiobook pet peeve? It mostly has to do with noises. There have been certain audiobooks where you can hear the narrator breathing too hard. It's really weird when I say it like that. It sounds very stupid, but like I actually do it myself. Whenever I start a sentence, I'm like, I take a very big breath and then I try to get through a long sentence. I don't know why I do that, but I do it all the time. I edit myself out all the time on my own videos and I do it, and I hate that I do it, but I also hate it whenever I hear it in audiobooks, like someone taking a deep breath or just breathing too loudly in between the different sentences that they read out, because it really takes me out of listening to the actual story. It really takes me out of the story. That's a big ache of mine. And I'm sorry to say it because it's something natural and human. And I know that a lot of people can't stop it, but it's something that I notice when I listen to my audiobook. So it's really kind of a pet peeve of mine. And then the second thing is what I just mentioned in one of the previous questions. Whenever a narrator cannot do a good alternate voice of the other sex. So, for example, if we've got a male narrator doing a very cringy female voice, that's like, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. And also, I'm thinking of another thing, and that's something that will come up in a later question as well. It has to do with accents, right? Because I'm not very well versed in English based accents, so Irish or Scottish or Australian or, like other kinds of accents. For me, I appreciate whenever a narrator can do any of these accents, and I will not pay too much attention to those accents because they just sound good to me, because I'm not very well versed in those languages or in those accents, actually. But when it comes to languages that I actually know, that I actually speak or understand or have been taught in school, that's when it becomes a bit kind of like a pet peeve of mine. For example, I speak Bulgarian. Bulgarian is a Slavic language. So Slavic languages sound to a certain extent alike. So when we have, for example, Russian, while I don't speak Russian, the kind of, it's a Slavic language, so I will understand certain parts of it. And also the type of accent is very well known to me because I've listened to a lot of Russian, whether it be through school or through like friends and family and stuff. So I know how Russian sounds. And then when I hear a narrator try to do a Russian accent that doesn't really sound Russian, for me, it's like, I'm not sure what he is supposed to be because he's not Russian, but the actual character is supposed to be Russian, right? Or, for example, whenever we've got the narration, for example, of Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, the main character there is supposed to be Swedish. I know how Swedes sound because I actually know Swedes. I know people from Sweden. And then I know how they sound when they speak English. So I can very easily distinct their accent in English that they're from Sweden. And then the narrator in that specific story had a very more German sounding like accent for the character. And I was like, no, it doesn't sound Swedish to me at all. And that's maybe very privileged for me to say because I'm obviously from Europe and I've traveled around Europe a lot. So I know a lot of these accents and how they sound. And also I have something about linguistics. You know, I've been taught German and French and Spanish and Dutch and Bulgarian and English in school. So all of these languages are in my head somehow. And I can very easily distinguish between those languages. So it's kind of elitist for me to say that they don't sound very good. But at the same time, it does open up kind of a discussion about, to a certain extent, diversity and inclusivity. I would say that there's definitely somewhere a very good voice actor who can do a German accent because they've been to Germany or they have lived in Germany or they are German and they speak English quite well, so they can do a narration in that language. But, you know, it's part of the process of, also including favorite narrators of people in certain stories. So I know that probably most readers will prefer to hear Teddy Hamilton as a narrator, even though he may botch like the Russian accent in a book, not that he has done so, but even if he does an accent in a weird way, nobody's going to fault him for it because he does a splendid job overall, and that is absolutely fair. But for someone like me who recognizes the fact that it can be done in a better way if they have the actual speaker of that language narrated, it would be more authentic somehow. But that is a bit of a long discussion that I'm not sure that I want to get into. It's more so, I don't know, it's my personal pet peeve, specifically because I know most of these languages, at least I've heard them and I have kind of processed them in my day-to-day because I've lived in countries where these people, I've heard them speak. So yeah, it's more so that. The next question, honestly, is a bit difficult for me to answer. It's, if you could have any book made into an audiobook, which one would it be and who would narrate it? Now, I think that most of the time it's going to be like indie books that don't get made into audiobooks because it's quite an expensive process. I'm not sure if Burnout by Rebecca Genshak has an audiobook, but I don't think it has. If it does, I haven't come across it. But that one I would love to hear as an audiobook. And then I've just read an arc of a book that is yet to release. It's going to release tomorrow. It's The Faking Game by Olivia Hill. Olivia Hill typically does audiobooks for her books, so I'm looking forward to see if this one will get an audiobook. If it does, I'm going to definitely be picking it up. This book, who would narrate it? I think maybe someone with like a deeper voice like Aiden Snow, and then the female lead Nora would be someone like maybe like CJ Bloom, maybe, I'm not sure. And then another book, so I know that the Bourbon Brothers, so the Fox Brothers by Victoria Wilder, they're getting audiobooks. I know that the first book, Bourbon and Lies, already has an audiobook, but I would love to see all of them get audiobooks so we can enjoy those amazing characters in audiobook format as well. So I really hope that we get all of them as audiobooks as well. The next question is, what's your all-time favorite audiobook experience? Now, all-time favorite, I probably have to say the ACOTAR series, because those are the first book that really made me fall in love with audiobook reading, like I mentioned before. And those really stuck in my mind as the way that audiobooks can really transform reading into a more immersive experience for me. So those definitely made the biggest difference for me. And actually, those are probably going to be the first books that I reread as graphic audios. I definitely want to try them out as graphic audios, and Storytel actually has the graphic audios of Sarah J. Maas's books. So I'm going to try them out at some point. And whenever it comes to really fun experiences with audiobooks, I have to say Navessa Allen's Lights Out. That one last year was such a hoot for me. I really love that audiobook. It's duet style. There is again these fun, bantery experiences and elements and sounds that make it even more immersive than a regular audiobook. And that one was just a lot of fun. And also another book that recently released that is a very fun audiobook, and it's short, it's a novella. It's Whirlwind by Kayla Gross. This one is a Twister reimagining, so the movie Twister. And it has like audiobook sounds of like the tornadoes, and different kinds of aspects within the book have different sounds. And it is duet style, if I'm not mistaken. I really loved the production of the audiobook for this one as well. Those kinds of experiences just make it even more engaging and immersive. So those are definitely two books that I highly, highly enjoyed as audiobooks. Now, the next question is really fun. It's, have you ever listened to an audiobook that made you pause and say, wait, what did I just hear? And I actually just had this experience with the book What Happens in Amsterdam by Rachel Lynn Solomon. And that is exactly the situation of the accent game. I don't want to dive too deep into it because I already spoke 5 minutes about it. But essentially, the heroine is learning Dutch. She's in Amsterdam, so she has these lessons in Dutch, and she's learning these words. I speak Dutch, and I'm almost at native level because I lived there for very many years. And whenever she tries to say certain things, I had to actually rewind back to try to understand what exactly she's saying, what are the words that she's saying, because I'm not physically reading it. So if I were to read the actual book, I would know what it says, like what kind of a word is being used. But when she tries to pronounce it, I was like, what exactly are you trying to say? Like, what is the word? So I had to rewind back a couple of times with that audiobook. And then there are certain spicy audiobooks where certain things happen and you're like, did I just hear that they did that? Is that like, so you rewind back again to hear what exactly has happened. But yeah, I've had such instances in the past, and it's more so sometimes it's also me not understanding what exactly has happened. And especially with fantasy books, that can happen sometimes. I think I've had that with When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I had to rewind it back and actually grab the physical book to try to read what exactly is happening. So I've had that in the past for sure. All right, and the 12th, it's not actually a question, it's a prompt. It's tag some friends. Now, consider yourself tagged with this one. If you're an audiobook reader, as I am, please let us know what your preferences are. Answer these questions for us and tag us, me, Jess, and whoever is doing this tag, because we definitely want to find out more about you. And if I have to think of someone, I definitely want to hear maybe Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings do this tag. So I'm going to tag her below. And maybe Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life. And who else? I'm going to tag Jen from the Book Refuge. And I don't know, if you want to tag yourself again, tag yourself with this one. I hope we get more people doing this tag because we want to share some more love for audiobooks and audiobook readers and audiobook narrators in general. I really enjoyed this tag. So thank you so much, Jess, for coming up with these questions. And I hope to see you in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care and bye-bye.